Welcome to the HeyGen podcast. Today, we're diving into the fascinating world of government systems, specifically democracy versus authoritarianism.
Oh, that's a hefty topic. So what exactly defines a government?
Well, at its core, a government exists to establish laws, maintain order, and provide essential services.
Right.
It's basically the system that keeps society functioning smoothly.
Makes sense. So there are different types of governments, right?
Exactly. The two major categories are democracy and authoritarianism. They differ in how power is distributed and how much freedom citizens have.
Got it. So let's start with democracy. What is it exactly?
Democracy is a system where power is in the hands of the people, either directly or through elected representatives. It's all about individual rights and freedoms, free and fair elections, and checks and balances on power.
So like the US and Canada?
Yes, exactly. Countries like the United States, Canada, Germany, and Japan are prime examples.
Interesting. And there are different types of democracies, aren't there?
Yeah, there are. There's direct democracy, where citizens vote directly on laws and policies, like in Swiss referendums.
Oh, right.
Then there's representative democracy, where citizens elect officials to make decisions on their behalf, like in the US and UK.
And what's the difference between parliamentary and presidential democracies?
Good question. In a parliamentary democracy, the government is led by a prime minister chosen by the elected legislature. Think Canada or the UK.
Okay.
In a presidential democracy, the president is directly elected by the people and serves as both head of state and government, like in the US or Brazil.
Gotcha. So shifting gears, what's authoritarianism all about?
Authoritarianism is a system where power is concentrated in the hands of a single ruler or a small elite group. Common features include limited personal freedoms, censorship, and often rigged or symbolic elections.
Sounds restrictive.
It definitely is. Countries like North Korea and historical regimes like Nazi Germany are examples.
Are there different types within authoritarianism too?
Yes, there are several types. Totalitarianism, for instance, where the government controls all aspects of life. Think North Korea.
Yikes.
Then there's military dictatorships, like past regimes in Latin America, where a military leader rules without civilian control.
And one-party states?
Exactly. One-party states are where a single political party controls the government with no real opposition, like China or Cuba.
Right.
Then there's monarchies, which can be absolute, like Saudi Arabia, or constitutional, like the UK.
Wait, the UK is a monarchy?
Well, it's a constitutional monarchy. The monarch's powers are limited by the constitution, and they mostly serve as ceremonial figures.
Ah, that makes sense. So how do democracy and authoritarianism compare side by side?
Well, in democracies, elections are free and fair, while in authoritarian regimes, they're often rigged or non-existent. Democracies protect freedom of speech with a diverse media, whereas authoritarian governments censor and control the media.
And what about the rule of law?
In democracies, everyone is accountable under the law. In authoritarian systems, leaders are often above the law. Citizens in democracies actively participate and vote, while in authoritarian regimes, participation is limited and often controlled by fear.
So checks and balances exist in democracies?
Exactly. Multiple branches of government limit each other's power. In authoritarian systems, power is concentrated in one leader or party.
Interesting. But why do some governments lean more democratic or authoritarian?
It's complicated. Some governments blend elements of both systems. Take Russia or Turkey, for example.
Yeah.
Emergencies like wars or pandemics can also increase government control, even in democracies.
Like trading freedoms for security?
Exactly. People might accept more government control during crises. It's like they're willing to give up some freedoms for the promise of safety.
But isn't that a slippery slope?
It can be. That's why it's important to stay vigilant. Understanding these government types helps citizens recognize threats to their freedoms.
Right.
It's about finding a balance.
So being informed is key.
Absolutely. Knowing the warning signs of authoritarianism can prevent the loss of rights. It encourages people to participate in their government and advocate for good governance.
You know, it's like that saying, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it.
Exactly. History teaches us valuable lessons. By understanding different government systems, we can work towards a better future.
So what's the takeaway here?
Well, governments range from fully democratic to highly authoritarian, and many fall somewhere in between.
Yeah.
Being aware of these differences helps us understand global politics and empowers us to use our voices.
I guess the key is to stay informed and engaged.
Exactly. Participate in discussions, vote, and keep an eye on what's happening in the world.
Well, this has been enlightening.
It sure has. Thanks for joining me in this discussion.
Anytime. Looking forward to our next chat.
Me too. Until then, stay curious and keep learning.